I think the other two groups I didn't record last time. That's what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last time.
They were sort of impromptu, both of them. So last time we did chapter one, a revision of chapter one, and we looked at it from the perspective of samsara, right? Samsara. So samsara is, as we saw, some habitual patterns of bondage. That's how we can think about samsara. Things that we do continuously over and over again, and they become a habit, like having desires and chasing desires and, seeking, basically seeking our happiness outside of ourselves. That becomes a habit, and that is samsara. And how what is the cause of samsara? So different philosophies have different understandings about this, like what causes samsara. All philosophies say that there is bondage and we need to get out of bondage. That is the basis of all Indian philosophies. And they are very practical. I mean, that these philosophies are all Indian philosophies are all very personal driven. They're about personal transformation. So they say that the journey, philosophy says the journey is from bondage to freedom, bondage to liberation. Every whether it's Buddhism, Hinduism, whether in Hinduism it is Advaita Vedanta, whatever you want to call it, or whether it is Sankhya or Nyaya or Yoga, they all say that we live in bondage because that's everybody understands that we have this bondage, and the way to get out of bondage, and that we need to get out of bondage, that is liberation. But what is liberation exactly, and how to do that is different in each philosophy. Okay, so we are looking at Advaita Vedanta. That's the lens that we've been looking at. So that's where we will be focused on. So the reason why the path to freedom is different in every philosophy is because their understanding of what causes the bondage, what's the root cause of bondage, is different. So in the case of Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya and his predecessors, they all established that the reason why we are in bondage is because we don't know our real self. Our real self is Atma. It's not this body and mind. We confuse and we think, oh, I'm this body and mind, which means when this body dies, I will die. When this mind dies, I will die. It's perishable. You can see it's fragile. It's dependent upon the world, dependent upon the earth. You can see how delicate it is. I guess, Sanjay. Hi, Sanjay.
Hello, Ji. Hello.
We were
What
just
is
Hi.
getting
so?
started.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No.
so no worries. So we just said that, recapping. Last time we are on the revision of Gita now. So last time we covered
Mm.
chapter one, and chapter
Mm.
one was about samsara.
Yeah.
Samsara. And what is samsara? Samsara is this pattern of this bondage, this pattern of bondage that we all live in. And
Yeah.
in a nutshell, it is basically this understanding in our mind and body and our intellect everywhere that we need to seek happiness. We feel we are not happy. We need to find happiness, and we believe that we will find happiness outside of ourselves, in things, in people, in things, in possessions, in experiences. That is where we'll find happiness. And this is a pattern which has become very intrinsic to us. So we are constantly doing that. And that is samsara, and that is bondage. This idea that this is bondage and this is samsara is a common factor in all philosophies. And all philosophies also say that we need to go towards liberation. They all point a way to liberation, but what they define as liberation and what they define as the path of liberation varies by philosophy. So we are following Advaita Vedanta, and Advaita Vedanta says it defines the liberation in a particular way. And it starts by saying, what's the cause of this bondage? Why do we have this bondage? If we can address the root cause of this bondage, then we will know how to get over it. So in Advaita Vedanta, the root cause of the bondage is given as a lack of self knowledge. We we think we don't realize that there is something called Atma, and we are that Atma. We think that we are this mind and body. And we all know that the mind and body is very fragile. बीमारियां होती रहती हैं, मर जाएंगे एक दिन, mind will also go away, people we love will also go away, because we also see them as mind and body. The people we love also, we see them as mind and body, just like we see ourselves as mind and body. So we are seeing everything around us as mind and bodies. Everything around us, mind and bodies, at the subject, at the mercy of the universe. Because कल को क्या हो जाए, कुछ और वॉर हो जाए, क्या हो जाए, who knows? All these things can cause our destruction. Our destruction and the destruction of those who we are attached to, because we think that our happiness is dependent on those people. So we live in a very fragile world of our own making. We first created this concept of ourselves and of others as this fragile mind and body. And then we realize, oh my God, everything is so fragile. My happiness is so fragile. And anything can happen. And, you know, I can be in the depths of despair very soon. So this this lack of understanding that we are actually Atma and so are others, and Atma is not something which can be destroyed. Atma is imperishable, is the cause of our suffering, the ultimate cause of our suffering. So if you really, you can think of any cause, but if you go deeper and deeper and deeper into that cause and say, okay, what's the cause of that? You might say the cause of my suffering is my husband is not good, not a good man, or my wife is not a good person. Then you say, okay, why is that so? Why is that so? If you keep digging into the cause, you'll find out that at the end of the day, it just boils down to yourself, your idea and your conception of yourself. It's not really about other people or other events of the world. So, given that our cause of our suffering, cause of bondage is ignorance, then the obvious logical answer to how to get rid of the ignorance and find liberation is through knowledge, the opposite of ignorance. We have to remove the ignorance. And we remove the ignorance through knowledge. So it's ignorance about ourselves. So we kind of say, let's remove that ignorance of ourselves through self-knowledge. And that is the path that Advaita Vedanta takes. It says the answer to your liberation, or the journey to your liberation, is through your knowledge of yourself. And then it goes, as you proceed, excuse me, as you proceed in this direction, you begin to realize, okay, it's not quite as simple. You know, it's not like knowing some other object or knowing physics or studying Sanskrit or anything else. Or Sanskrit, even studying the Ved. You can even study the Ved. There's a way in which we've been getting knowledge of everything else, and we realize, oh, this is not the way I can get self-knowledge, because the self is not an object out there. It's me. It's the subject. It's the one that is seeing. It's the one that experiencing. So then you're stuck. Okay, how can I get the knowledge of something which actually gets the knowledge? You know, how can the I see itself, in other words? And what we realized last time, we've gone through all of this, is that the way to that knowledge is not through perception. You can't, not through experience. You can't experience the one that experiences, because there has to be someone who experiences. So how can that experience itself? You cannot see it. None of those things. So it's a very subtle way to knowledge. And it's through understanding all of this, understanding and negating everything else, by negating all that you can experience and saying, okay, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me. As you negate everything else that you experience, what remains, what really you cannot negate is yourself. That's how you know that yourself is there. Because you just know you exist. It's not something that you have to be told that you exist. You actually exist. That's something that you know at the back of your mind all the time. And you try to see, okay, can I be this? Can I be this? Can I be this? None of those is you. So you gain this knowledge and total conviction about yourself through this process. And because this is an unusual process, of gaining knowledge. This is not like reading a book, right? Therefore, it's often in Gita, it's called a rahasya. It's, uh, it's something which needs a guru. You need a person to guide you through this. It takes time. It takes time to understand this. You have to get rid of a lot of conceptions about what knowledge is, what knowing is, which is what we did, right? And we gain this knowledge. So this is one difficulty in this gaining this knowledge, that it's a very unusual sort of knowledge, because it's the only knowledge which is the knowledge of the subject, the one who's experiencing. Every other knowledge is the knowledge of the object. And that's all we know about knowledge, how to gain the knowledge of a particular object. Now I'm saying I need to gain the knowledge of the subject, the one who experiences. So that's one difficulty. The second difficulty is that you can gain the knowledge too, but it doesn't change behavior, because your behavior is ingrained. Like we said, the behavior is a pattern, it's a pattern of behavior. And we have in us ingrained patterns of bondage, right? Samsara. So our mind and our body is so committed to this thought that our pleasure and our happiness lies outside ourselves, that just by telling it, and even telling it very logically, even convincing it logically, you still can't really, when it comes to it, you act by instinct. You don't apply your buddhi in a critical situation. You act by instinct. And your instinct is always to do what you've always been doing, which is always seeking, conviction, happiness outside of yourself. A simple example of this is a doctor who likes to smoke. He's addicted to smoking. So this doctor can study. He could be what are those people called who study the lungs? New
Pulmonologist.
Pulmonologist. Thank you. Pulmonologist. I was going into new something. So you could be a pulmonologist, and you could know exactly how the smoke of the cigarette is affecting the sacs of your lung. You could be a cardiologist, and you would know exactly how the cigarette is causing inflammation, which is screwing up the walls of your arteries and causing plaque, and causing a cardiac disease. You know that truly, fully, completely, and you even cure patients based on that. And you tell them you should not smoke. And you have complete knowledge. But if you're used to smoking, the moment you get stressed, you're having some problems at home and your wife is troubling you or your husband is troubling you and your children are having something, first thing you do is reach for a cigarette. You're not thinking at that time. Even if you know, you'll still reach for your cigarette. That's what you need. That's what your body needs right now, because your body is addicted to it. So you can give that person as much knowledge about smoking and how harmful it is that you want, and the person will be convinced and he knows it's harmful, or she, but they can't give up smoking. So it's this something similar going on here too. We can give as much knowledge about the self and about Atma and everything as we want, but but we are so used to we are so used to our desires and running after our desires that we can't get over it. We can have marginal benefit when things are going well. We can be very, very good. In Vedanta they call Shamshan Vairagya. When someone dies and you go to the Shamshan, for a few hours you have complete vairagya. इसे क्या है दुनिया में रखा देखो एक दिन गया और उस दिन मर गया क्या है? But within a few hours you're back home and you're back to your patterns, right? So the patterns run very deep. So knowledge is one part, one thing, but addressing the patterns is the other. And so we have to work on both when it comes to Vedanta, when it comes to personal transformation. We have to get the knowledge so that we know in our mind that it's the engine. The knowledge is the engine. It keeps us motivated, keeps us motivated. And we also have to work on behavior, because we need that help. Without that, work on behavior, without that help, we can't, our motivation isn't strong enough to uproot these deep rooted behaviors. Okay. So the first one is called Gyan. Gita calls it Sankhya, and they call it Sankhya Yoga. And the second one is Karam, and Gita calls it Karam Yoga. It's not, it's all kinds of Karam. Activities of the body, activities of the mind, they're all Karam. But, and Gita covers both. It covers meditation, it covers bhakti, it covers Karam Yoga, traditionally defined, but it calls it all Karam. It's all in the bracket of Karam. It's all about behavior change. Okay. So these are the two parts, and chapter 2 is about introducing both of these. It introduces these two paths to us. So let me share some verses with you so that you'll know what verses are saying what.
No,
If you can ask any
Dheeraj,
questions, if you have any
Dheeraj, one
questions, yeah.
second.
Huh?
Yeah, Dheeraj, let me
Uh-huh.
interrupt.
Yeah.
Before we switch to chapter 2,
Uh,
suppose we want to take 5 key points from chapter 1.
right.
5 points we should really know to the depth and really memorize and practice. What would be those 5 points?
Okay, so let me give you, I don't know whether they're five, and I haven't thought through them, but
No,
as they occur to me,
whatever.
let me
Maybe
share.
have you worked on this pattern?
On personally, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
And you, so have
yeah.
you. So have you.
Mm,
Right? When you say, because that's the point. When you say, I'm looking at my behavior and seeing how and why I get angry,
mm,
what draws me? I look at my day and, right, you're working on the pattern.
mm.
So the biggest takeaway from chapter 1 is observe yourself.
Observe yourself.
Yes, because see, um, if you, it's one thing to say, okay, we are all in samsar, caught in samsar. But it's another thing to know that in your gut that you're caught in samsar. What happens is, very often, especially when we are new to this, we think the rest of the world is caught in samsar, I am not. Somehow, I am better. Somehow, I have figured it out. कि मुझे तो पता है, मेरे को पता है मैं तो अपने में खुश हूं, बाकी दुनिया जो है वो दुखी है, या आई कैन टेक केयर ऑफ इट, मे बी मैं अपने में खुश नहीं हूं, मे बी, बट मुझे पता है कि जब मौका आएगा तो मैं कर लूंगी, कुछ कर लूंगी या कर लूंगा. This is a very common belief in all of us because we have to live. So in order to live, we have to tell stories to ourselves about ourselves. You know, otherwise we'll be pretty desperate all the time. So we tell stories to ourselves. We tell ourselves, somehow I am beyond this. I have knowledge. The rest of the world doesn't know. So the first thing you have to understand is get out of this denial. Literally actually see for yourself. Look back at your day and say, where all did I actually behave in a way which is not consistent with my own impressions about myself, my own ideas about myself, or which is not consistent with the way I think I should have behaved. Not not actually saying I know better. It's not an exercise of mind. It is not about saying, oh, मुझे ज़्यादा ज्ञान है दूसरे से. This is not about ज्ञान. This is about actual behavior. So you can say, hey, I know better. मैंने इतनी देर वेदांत करी है. I am not the one who gets nervous. But every day you're getting anxious. Something happens and you're getting anxious. That be able to see that objectively is an art, is also something which is, you need skill here. So you have to see that. And then you have to recognize and admit, I am anxious. I have problems. And there's nothing wrong in it because everybody else has problems too. It's totally fine. Till you know that you're totally fine to have problems, you will not admit to yourself that you have problems. If you think by admitting to I have problems, I am somehow going to become worse than others, or somehow I'm failing, you will never admit to problems. You'll find a way to circumvent them. So, the lesson of chapter one is now look at your life and see, write down if you need to. Every day, make a journal and say, this is what happened to me today. And this is where I behaved in a way which shows me that I am bound in samsara. And that samsara exists. And not just me, others too. My wife, my husband, my friends, they have also behaved in a particular way which I see is bound by samsara. So you notice samsara all around you. It should become really real to you. It shouldn't be just a concept. So you can, and it has two things, It first of all, this becomes real, the problem becomes real, and the answer becomes real. The second thing is it takes away a portioning of blame. When you see your behavior and you see how it is samsar, your lack of understanding of yourself, which is causing it, it takes the blame away from you. You realize it's not your fault. It's a, it's a pattern you've been born into and you've been sustaining. And when you see others do the same thing, it takes the blame away from others too. I mean, it's possible, Sanjay, that you or Rajiv or me or any of us, we'll find our spouses behaving in a particular way. We can blame them and say, oh, they are selfish. They are not applying themselves. They are not caring for me. They're not doing this. We can do all those things. But if you see how samsar, their patterns of bondage are leading them to behave in a particular way, which is causing you pain, right? Then you will stop apportioning blame to them also. Just like you're giving yourself um, the benefit of the doubt by saying it's samsar, you're giving the others the benefit of the doubt too. And that itself, just this act itself, first automatically brings a certain measure of peace. So if you have pain, I mean, as an example, if you have pain in your leg, right? And there are people like that, they have pain. They don't even acknowledge they have pain. Literally, they don't, their mind is there. They say, no, no, I don't have pain. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. What happens to these people is they get very anxious, irritable, always angry. You'll see why are they behaving in this particular crazy, restless way? What's wrong with them? It's because they are in pain and they have not acknowledged their pain. The moment they acknowledge, oh, yes, I have pain, right? Their behavior will change. The stress will go away because to maintain a lie, when you're in living in samsar and you're saying I'm not in samsar, you're trying to maintain a lie in your own mind to your own self. Maintaining a lie causes a lot of stress. It requires a lot of effort and causes a lot of stress. Resolving into the truth removes the stress. So the lesson from chapter one, to me, the biggest lesson is observe yourself and notice how samsar is manifesting in your behavior and the behavior of others around you. So then the problem becomes very clear and real. We say in consulting or in management, we say the first thing to do to solve anything is to identify the problem properly. Only if you've truly understood the problem can you then start saying, okay, let me find the diagnosis. Why is this problem there? and what do I do about it? If the problem is not identified, then we are sort of, a little in a swirl. So there's not 5 points, and just 1 point, but it's a pretty powerful 1 point.
Powerful.
Yes,
Okay.
one powerful point. Just take that. And I think you guys you do it. I know that you try to notice this all the time. Just don't tell yourself, you know, I'm out of samsar. I'm better than this. No, don't tell yourself that because that'll hold you back. Just admit, be humble. I got problems. Happy to take any help from
No,
Bhagwan
one
Krishna
is
or from.
admission that I got problems. And second, I think our aim should be how can I improve? How can I be a better human being?
Right. Yes,
That should be the vision.
absolutely.
And
100%.
Dheeraj,
Yeah.
and Dheeraj,
Yeah, yeah.
one thing that one point that I always feel that is in chapter one is that if you face your loved ones and you are in a dilemma to take decision, follow the right path. Don't follow the path to please everybody.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, again, that is a solution, right? Solution you're giving a solution to a problem. You're in a dilemma and you're saying, here's the solution, right? And the solution is
No,
follow the right path. What
what
I'm saying
I
is
am saying is
the
that
solution comes in chapter two. So you're giving
no,
a
I'm not talking about solution. I am talking about the mool point of the chapter one is that if you face your relatives and you come into a dilemma that whether I have to take the decision or I have to please them, then take the right decision.
I'm saying that is a key point, mool point of the Gita, not of chapter one. That is a
Mhm.
that is the essence of the Gita. If
Okay.
anything, you could say it's the essence of chapter two. Chapter one में अभी ये नहीं आया. Chapter one में they are only describing Arjun's problems. Correct?
Mhm.
Chapter one doesn't talk about follow the right path. तो भगवान जी ने कुछ बात नहीं करी है. That is what you're saying this because you know the Gita. So you know what's coming ahead. So आपके मन में ये conclusion है. So that is totally
Mhm.
what you're saying is
Maybe.
100% true. But it's not chapter one.
Okay.
Okay. Chapter one, but don't ignore the message of chapter one, which is in order to follow the right path, even to do what you have to do later, all the things which come later in the Gita, you have to know your problem. That means you have to understand samsar and how samsar behaves and manifests in you and manifests in others. So don't short circuit that, is what I'm saying. Hmm? But what you're saying is 100% right. The
Yeah.
answer, Gita's answer to samsar is, I mean, of course, the ultimate answer is know yourself, but the answer, the immediate answer to even to get to a situation where you can know yourself is do the right thing. Don't get swayed by affections and by
Yes.
people. Do the right thing. So that is absolutely that is the essence of Karma Yoga. Okay. So that was chapter one. The other thing that chapter one tells you, just something to keep in mind, is that samsara can manifest in many different ways. It can manifest as love, what you define as love. There's a difference between love and attachment. So samsara can manifest itself as attachment, not as love. A very simple difference between love and attachment is that an attachment comes with expectation, and love doesn't come with expectation. Attachment comes with pain. Love doesn't come with pain. Attachment comes with bondage, anxiety, um, fear of loss. Love doesn't come with all of those things. So, samsar shows up in attachments. Another way samsar shows up is fear, right? Afraid, fear. Another way samsar shows up is this is moha, shoka, and which was the third one? Shoka is grief, right? So shows up as grief. Moha is confusion. So samsara shows up as confusion. We will constantly be in thorns or dilemmas. We wouldn't. Moha means confusion. We don't know what to do. ये भी करना चाहिए, वो भी करना चाहिए, ये करूं या वो करूं, क्या करूं, क्या करूं, क्या करूं. You're always in a dilemma. That's another feature of samsara. We're in a dilemma because we are always afraid of loss. और ये करूंगा तो वो ये गड़बड़ हो जाएगी, ये करूंगी तो ये गड़बड़ हो जाएगी. So then you're always thinking, oh, ये गड़बड़ हो जाएगी, गड़बड़ हो जाएगी. You're always thinking about the result. You're always thinking about the consequences of your action and that how shattering they can be and things like that. So you find a lot of confusion. You find moha. शंकराचार्य ने क्या कहा था यार? Shoka, moha, I've forgotten.
Fear कहाँ जाएगा? Fear.
Fear bhi hai. I mean, it's all there too. I mean, all these things. Anger, it shows up as anger. Krodha, shoka, moha, krodha. Those are the three things.
Hmm.
It shows up as anger. Krodh, matlab because when you have desires, you always have anger. If the desire is not met, right, that leads to anger. Whenever we are angry, this is another way to think about it. If we are ever angry, our job as proponents of chapter one, as the students of chapter one, our job is to figure out what's the desire behind this anger. Because there'll always be a desire behind the anger. And it's that desire which is not being met, which is why we get angry. We get angry at our son or our daughter. It will be because we have certain expectations of behavior from the son or daughter. And that's based on our own feeling that my son and my daughter should be accomplished. My son and my daughter should be like this. So, so that's why, so that's the desire. So you recognize the desire behind the anger. So these are all lakshanas of samsara. So the three that Shankaracharya said was shoka, moha, krodha. But, all of these others are there too. They're all basically the same thing. I mean, different sides of the same thing. So this is how samsara shows up. And this is what dictates bondage. This is what creates bondage in ourselves and the patterns of bondage that we feel. Okay. All right. Let's start on chapter 2. I don't think we'll finish chapter 2 today, but we can get started. Well, we've already started. I want to show you the key verses. Maybe we can finish. You guys can see it, right? Yeah? Mukta, you can see? Oh, you're all muted.
Yeah, yeah, we can see.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, you're all muted. I was wondering why you're so quiet. Okay, so chapter 2 really starts with 2.11, right? And let me just go straight to so right away. So this is where Sri Bhagwan actually starts, the Gita starts. The Gita starts with chapter 2, 11th verse. इससे पहले it's all a description of Arjun's moha and shoka. So Arjun is talking all the time. He's laying out the problem in chapter 1 and first 10 verses of chapter 2. And you can see how you can see his confusion growing. You can see his mind devolving. And ultimately he says, hey God, hey Bhagwan, help me. I don't know what to do. Please help me. And when he says that, which is in chapter here, he says that, oh no, when he says that, then Krishna Bhagwan smiles and tells him, okay, now I'll tell you. I'll share the knowledge with you. And that happens verse 11 of chapter 2. And that's Gita. Okay. So in fact, um, Shankaracharya starts his commentary with chapter 2, 2.11. He actually gives a comment on chapter 2.10 also, but that's very quickly he describes what is samsara as shoka moha krodha. He actually describes the shoka moha, but also some other commentators on it have added krodha. So that is introduction to his bhashyam, introduction to his commentary is on verse 2.10. Then he goes to 2.11 and starts his commentary, and this is where Gita actually starts. So let's start with 2.12. So this verse here, it says, I don't know whether you can read it, but it doesn't matter because I'll just speak it out. It says, Na tve vaham jatu nasam, na tvam neme janadi paha, na chaiva na bhavishyamaha, sarve vayam ataha param. So what he's saying is, and here's the English translation, or maybe I should have just read this, that he's telling Arjun, Arjun, don't be sad. Don't feel so grieved about all this death and destruction which you are going to cause and which is going to be caused. He was just trying to explain to him that there was never a time when I did not exist. Natve vaham jatu nasam. And there was never a time I did not exist. Natvam, neither you, neme janadipaha, nor these kings. So there was never a time when I did not exist, neither did you nor ever exist, nor these kings that are seeing you seeing around them. All these kings, and including Bhisham and Drona and everybody, that they never existed. They always existed. Nor will any of us cease to exist in the future. So there was never a time we did not exist. Obviously, we're existing in the present right now, and there will never be a time when we will not cease to exist in the future. So, so he said that, and then he said, Dehinaha asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovaram jarah. So I'll just read out the English. Just as for the jiva, the indweller of the body, there is childhood, youth, and old age. Similarly, or similar, is the gaining of another body. With reference to that, a wise person does not grieve. So he's saying, explaining further, and then let me read you all these and I'll explain. Then he says, Konteya, the contacts of the sense organ with the sensory world. Actually, maybe let me just open here. So in these two, what he's trying to say is defining Atma, basically. When he says there was never a time when you didn't exist, I didn't exist, he's obviously not referring to the body. Because the body, of course, had a birth and will have a death. Nor the mind also will have a birth and death. He is referring to Atma. And he says the Atma has always existed. And he calls that Atma Dehi. So Dehino Yasmin Yatha. Dehino Asmin Yatha Dehe. So he defines Dehi and Dehe. He's saying Dehi is the indweller of the Deha. Dehe means in the Deha. In Sanskrit, when you have to say in something, Saptami, you say Dehe. So Dehe means in the Deha. Dehinaha, that means of the Dehi. Just like the Dehi exists inside this body. So that's what he's meaning. So he's defining the Atma, he's calling it Dehi. So he's saying there is a Deha, which is a mind and body. In that, there is a Dehi. That Dehi experiences everything. It experiences when you were born. It experiences when you were young, a youth. Then it experiences as you grew up. And even Jara, that means Jara means Yauvanam Jara. Yauvanam is when you're young, Jara means when you're old. It also experiences when you're old. So this Dehi is experiencing all of this. When you say, I am old and I was young, right? Who is this me, which is saying, I was old and now I'm young? Or, I mean, I was young and now I'm old. Who is this me? It can't be the body, because the body is the one which is getting old. In other words, when you have to experience something, you can't be that thing itself to experience it. If you're the thing itself, you will never experience change. To experience any change, you have to be separate from that thing. You have to be not changing yourself, and the other thing has to change. Only then you experience, right? If you're sitting in a train and the train is going very fast, you're not going to experience speed. You can, because ऊपर नीचे जा रही है. Let's say you're sitting in a plane, in an aeroplane. There's no friction or very little friction, no vibration. You're going very fast. Can you experience what speed you're going? Let's say you're going at 400 miles per hour. Then the airplane slows down to 200 miles per hour gradually. तुमको पता भी नहीं चलेगा. And then it goes up to 1000 miles per hour. It's broken the sound barrier. कुछ नहीं पता चलेगा, because you're also moving with it. To experience the speed of the plane, you have to be outside and at rest. When you're at rest outside and the plane whoosh goes by, you can see, oh my God, how fast it is. Or if you're in a bullet train in Japan, that's how you feel. You're sitting in the train, तुमको लगता है कब भी नहीं हिलता. There's like no vibration. So तुमको लगता है you're at rest. So when you say, oh, I was young and now I'm old. If you are the one who was young and became old, you would never experience it. You would just be the same. As far as you're concerned, there's no change. There is something outside which is experiencing this body as having been young at one time and old at another. That is Dehi. This very simple concept, very powerful concept from the Gita. So he says there is a Dehi inside you which is experiencing you from getting from young to old. And he's saying not only that, just like it experienced, तुम सोते हो फिर उठ जाते हो, young होते हो फिर old होते हो, this Dehi is experiencing. He's saying you will give up this body, get another body, the Dehi will still be experiencing. There'll still be the Dehi there. It'll experience just like you grew from young to old, it experienced it. It'll also experience similarly, yatha, as you experience growing, similarly, tatha, you will experience a new body has come in. Yatha tatha. Okay. So, so it's just like discarding the old body, getting a new one, going to sleep and getting up in the morning. That's what the Dehi is. Dehi doesn't die. Dehi is there all the time. It's experiences all of this. So right away in the second verse that he told Arjun, he's already told him this. Of course, Arjun won't get it. We won't get it also. So we have to go through it again and again and again, right? Because it's such an unusual concept. So he repeats it again and again, but he's got at it right at the beginning. He's not wasted any time.
But he is saying that Atma is the experiencer.
He's saying Dehi is the experiencer, yes. It's he's starting like this. So because he's starting like, because you can't, if you imagine if he says you are not even experiencer, you're nothing. It's like too much. So it
I
goes
see.
from there. And this is the reason why different people hook on to different parts of the Gita and create different philosophies. Okay.
Okay.
It's not even saying right now that Dehi is the cause of the world also, that Dehi is Brahman. It doesn't say all that right now. There's very few verses in the Gita which actually go to Advait Vedanta fully. But they exist. So it's making you, wherever you can, it can grab you, wherever you can grab it, it's saying grab it there. Okay. So I just wanted to share this with you. And then it goes on to say other things. It says, again, it repeats, Na sato vidyate bhavo. This is a very, very famous shlok. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha, ubhayorapi drishtantaha, right? Tvanyos tattva darshivihi. So for the unreal, there is never any being. That which didn't exist will never exist. For the real, there is never any non-being. That which actually exists can never cease to exist. The ultimate truth of both, the real and the unreal, is seen by the knowers of the truth, by the Tattvadarshi. Tattvadarshi. Tattvadarshi means जो तत्व को देख सकता है, जो actual reality को देख सकता है. And he's saying that is, what is it? What is it that ceases to exist? Our mind and body. It ceases to exist. You can see people around you, the body has ceased to exist after some time. So something which ceases to exist cannot be real. So he is defined real as that which never ceases to exist. And he's saying, have the knowledge, be a tattvadarshi. If you're a tattvadarshi, you'll be able to see and discriminate between that which is the real and which is not the real. Most of us are not tattvadarshis. Most of us look at this body and say, this is real. This is all there is. This body, this world, this mind, this is all there is. We are not tattvadarshis. Because these things come and go. They're existing today, they will stop existing tomorrow. Correct? So obviously we are thinking this is real. So we are not tattvadarshis. We are giving reality to things which come and go. He's saying, no, don't do that. This is not what is really real. So what is it that's really real, which never ceases to exist? Only one thing. Dehi, Atma. He defined the Pale, right? That the Atma was never born, never ceases to exist. So that is what is real. A person who sees the Atma, who understands the Atma, and understands it as the real, and understands everything else as the unreal, is the Tattvadarshi. That's what he's saying. So be a Tattvadarshi. Don't just be a Darshi of imagination. don't, don't give reality to things which are not real. You cannot do that till you know that there is something called Atma, till you understand it. How can you be a Tattvadarshi? Because you don't know it. So तुम उसका दर्शन कैसे करोगे तत्व का? Atma is the same as Tattva. Tattva means Atma. Tattva means Dehi. So तुम कैसे उसका दर्शन करोगे? कैसे तत्वदर्शी बनोगे अगर तुमको पता ही नहीं है कि आत्मा क्या है? तुम्हारे लिए तो only thing which exists is this world, this body and mind. So गीता का chapter 2 में its ज्ञान is this, that there is a Dehi, there is something, and it'll prove to you, it'll slowly by all these indications. First indication he said was there's something you are aware that there is change happening. There's change to your body. You're aware. If you're aware, that means you're not changing. This body is changing. That's why you're aware. If you were changing with the body, you will never have that awareness. It's relativity. Einstein also said the same thing. Okay. He said it's relativity. So
But we also say that the only change we can sense is in us in itself.
no. See, we are not saying that we can sense change in it. So we are saying that when that is a that is if we say that we can only change it, that's an intermediate step to show you how change is sensed. We don't actually sense a change in ourselves. There is no change in ourselves. It's the same as your question. You're saying experience. If you're saying if I am the one who's experiencing, then I'm the one who's experiencing. That means I'm experiencing a change in myself. But it is a seeming change. It's not really a change. That is where we get into Advait Vedanta. Dvait Vedanta will not go in there. It will say, yeah, there's a change happening. So this is an important point to think through, Kiki. Why do we say that the only way we can experience change is a change in ourselves, yet there is no change in me? I'm experiencing a change, right? Obviously, if I'm experiencing a change, it's within me, it's impacting me, otherwise I will never experience it. Yet, I'm also saying I'm changeless. How do you reconcile the two? So that's what Maya is. That's what Vivarta Upadana Karana, right? We talked about this. A seeming change which is not really there. It's like a dream, a seeming reality which is not really there. In your dream, you're seeing everything. You're seeing all kinds of things. In your dream, you think it is totally clear. Everything is changing. There's an earthquake here. There's this here. This is that. And you can say in the dream, yeah, I can also go through the process in the dream to understand, oh, this change must be happening in me. That is why I'm seeing all these changes. But then you wake up, there's no change at all. There was never any change. That is how Advait Vedanta explains this. It's called adhyasa, superimposition. It's not really there, it's seemingly there. But don't worry about it. This is really deep, complicated philosophy. And I wouldn't spend too much time on it. I would worry about the second part of chapter 2, which is Karma Yoga, if I were you. But of course, you're you. So let me just quickly show you where that. So he says all these things, and he says a lot of different things. He's also saying here, na jiyate, na mriyate va kadachit, nayam bhutva, etc., etc. The self is never born, nor does it die. See? This self is never born, this Dehi or Atma is never born, nor does it die. It's not that having been, it ceases to exist, blah, blah, blah. So many things it says. It doesn't, it is unborn, eternal. See, it is unborn, eternal, undergoes no change whatsoever, and is ever new. When the body is destroyed, the self is not destroyed. The Dehi is not destroyed. Okay. He says that in these verses in Sanskrit. Partha, that means Arjun, the one who knows this self to be indestructible, timeless, unborn, and not subject to decline, how and whom does that person kill? Whom does he cause to kill? Let me also show you more. Some other famous verses. Here. ये तो रचना आपने भी सुना होगा वासांसी जीर्णानि यथा विहाय. Just as a person gives up old clothes and takes up new ones, so does the self, the one who dwells in the body, gives up old bodies and takes others which are new. So all these things, he's repeating again and again. Weapons do not slay the self. Again, very popular, well-known shlok. Weapons do not slay the self, nor does fire burn it. Water does not wet it, nor does wind dry it. This self cannot be slain, burnt, drowned, or dried. Okay? All right. So he says all these things. First thing he explains the first part, trying to explain to you, trying to start Arjun on the path of understanding what I am really. He's sown the seed. He's told him, think there is something called Atma. अभी तक तो अर्जुन को कुछ पता भी नहीं था कि वो आत्मा भी कोई चीज होती है, कोई देही भी कोई चीज होती है. He thought he was mind and body. Now he's trying to tell him, no, no, you're dehi. It's the seed is sown. But he also knows that just this is not going to solve Arjun's problem. He needs more. he is already committed to samsara. So he goes further. Then he says in this chapter, after all these verses, I'm not going to go through all of them, but these verses are all talking about that, most of them, about Dehi and all that. Then he says, 239 say, the wisdom with reference to the self-knowledge has so far been told to you. Esha te, it's not Amita, it's Abhita. Esha te bihitaha sankhye buddhi yoge tvimam chunu. So far, I have told you, I've indicated Sankhya. I told you ना, it's called Sankhya, this knowledge about yourself. So he said, अभी तक मैंने तुमको इशारा करा है. अभिहिता का मतलब इंडिकेट करना, इशारा करना, कि ये सांख्या के बारे में. मतलब I've not given you the full knowledge, but I've given you the इशारा. Now, you listen to Karma Yoga. So the wisdom with reference to self-knowledge has so far been told to you. Now, Partha, listen to the wisdom of yoga. So Karma Yoga को he calls yoga. बीच में कभी कभी कर्म योग कहते हैं, कभी कभी योगा कहते हैं. But when he says योग, he means कर्म योग. When he says buddhi, he means sankhya, he means knowledge. When he says yog, he means practice. Yoga is practice, discipline. Karma yoga is a practice, a discipline. So he said you have to do both. So far I have told you about the buddhi, the wisdom with reference to self-knowledge. Now I want to tell you about yoga. So this is an introductory chapter where he's giving both. And he says the first thing he says about Karma Yoga is he says, in this yoga, there is no wasted effort, nor are the opposite results ever produced. Even very little of this Karma Yoga protects from great fear. So he's saying that कभी कभी क्या होता है, लोगों को डर होता है कि मैं ये प्रैक्टिस करूंगा या करूंगी तो इससे कुछ नुकसान हो जाएगा. लाइक दे टेल यू, पीपल विल टेल यू, यू हैव टू डू दिस थिंग, मैं तुमको मंत्र बताऊंगा, किसी और को मत बताना. बिकॉज अगर आप किसी और को बता दोगे तो वो गलत कर देंगे. वो गलत कर देंगे तो उनको नुकसान हो जाएगा. राइट? You'll hear this from people, especially in India. There's a lot of this. Or, no, no, only learn from me, or something like that. So what happens? It creates a fear in you that, oh, I shouldn't be telling this to anybody else. He says, Gita, there's no such thing. Okay? There is nothing. You can't go wrong here in Karma Yoga. कोई उसका नेगेटिव इफेक्ट नहीं होने वाला. You can, there is no wasted effort and there is no negative effect. Wasted effort भी क्यों कहते हैं? क्योंकि लोग कहते हैं, oh, it's a big commitment. Should I undertake this commitment? अगर अभी आपको कोई कहे कि now at 65, Rachna ji, why don't you start learning medicine? And Mukta, why don't you start engineering? So you'll say, "Arey yaar, that's a big effort." Like, I don't know whether I have the mental and the physical stamina to go through another 5 years of learning. इतनी मेहनत करके मे बी मैं इतनी तंग आ जाऊंगी कि बीच में ही छोड़ के चली जाऊंगी, तो सारा ये व्यर्थ हो जाएगा, सब खत्म हो जाएगा. राइट? So we are afraid of undertaking because we are afraid of wasted efforts. So the two reasons why we are afraid of taking something big is, एक तो हमको लगता है it's a wasted effort कि I won't be able to complete it. Then मैं ना इधर की रहूंगी ना उधर की रहूंगी, मैंने घर भी छोड़ दिया, ये भी कर दिया. Or you say, if I do it wrong, there'll actually be a negative side effect. We haven't seen much of it, but if you actually go to the spiritual gurus, many of them, they do that. The moment they say that, you should be very suspicious, actually. Like, what the hell? Why? What is so special in you? What is so special in this mantra? Right? So he's saying, he's right away denying that. He's saying none of these things happen in Karma Yoga. So don't worry. Even if you start Karma Yoga and it's a very big effort, तुमको लगेगा मैं कैसे खत्म करूंगा ये कर्म योग, इतनी लंबी बात है. Don't worry. Even if you do a little bit, you'll get little result. जितना करोगे उतना, जितना नाता उतना पुण्य. ओके? जितना जितना गंगा स्नान करोगे उतना तुमको पुण्य मिलेगा. सो अगर एक दिन करा तो एक दिन का पुण्य मिल जाएगा, कोई बात नहीं, एक दिन करो. राइट? सो ही सेइंग स्टार्ट स्मॉल इफ यू वांट टू स्टार्ट स्मॉल. गो स्लोली,
लेकिन
टेक योर टाइम.
अगर मैं जो कर रही हूँ मैं उसी में खुश हूँ और मैं नहीं करना चाहती,
हाँ, तो फिर तो बिल्कुल मत करो. जो तुम कर रहे हो उसी में खुश हो तो बिल्कुल वही करो. देयर इज नो क्वेश्चन. द रीजन, अगर आपको पता चल गया है कि मैं संसार में हूं, आई हैव अ प्रॉब्लम, आई नीड सम हेल्प, तभी आप कुछ कर रहे हो ना. तो आपने अपना एक पाथ चुना है, आप वही पाथ चलो. Later on in the Gita, Bhagwan Krishna says that there are many different paths. There are many different ways to approach this. कुछ लोग पितृ भक्त होते हैं, कुछ विष्णु भक्त होते हैं, कुछ शिव के भक्त होते हैं, कुछ कोई भक्ति नहीं होते, एथीस्ट होते हैं. कुछ कर्मयोगी होते हैं, कुछ कुछ ज्ञानी, कुछ कुछ राजयोगी होते हैं. He says you do whatever path you want. Whichever path you take, I will give you a result in that path. So Gita is very, very liberal. It's a true definition of a liberal, tolerant India, or Indian Hinduism. He says, no problem. You, whatever, जिसमें तुमको श्रद्धा है, वो करो. But he says, all these paths actually lead to me. Not me meaning Krishna Bhagwan me. If you think about Krishna Bhagwan, then you can't say, or Allah ka path doesn't lead to Krishna Bhagwan. Like in the sense that people who are practicing Muslim practices, who are praying to Allah, they are not thinking about Krishna Bhagwan. But Krishna Bhagwan says, don't think of me as Krishna Bhagwan. Think of me as the Tattva. Think of me as the underlying reality of everything. When you think of me like that, anything you do will lead to me. Because the reality, underlying reality of everything is the same. Whether it is one practice, second practice, third practice, whatever. So follow whatever path you want. Just follow it. Do properly, properly follow your path and you will get the result. So yes, Rachna ji, according to the Gita, do whatever you want. But
Yep.
there are certain things which you will learn as you go along, which even your own path will say are true. The principles of Karam Yoga are very, जिसे कहते हैं ना, natural principles. You don't have to be a Karam yogi to understand the principles of Karam Yoga. You can be you can follow any particular path, but those principles will hold true. And you will see how those principles are so general, so true. Like understanding that we follow our desires, we chase our desires, and chasing our desires doesn't necessarily get us happiness. This is a principle of Karam Yoga. आप किसी भी कोई भी भक्ति में चले जाओ, किसी भी रिलीजन में चले जाओ, the same feeling is going to come from there too. They will also say the same thing. Don't chase desires. They will tell you in a different way, but they will say the same thing. So Gita is very universal that way. Now Advaita Vedanta has its own thing about metaphysics. It says एक ही आत्मा है, बिल्कुल आत्मा नहीं है. वो that yes, there the differences come. Because some other religion will say there are multiple, everybody has their own atma. There's no one atma. It's all fine, no problem. Gita applies equally to all of them. Gita will give you sentences which will tell you, oh, see, Gita is saying this, एक ही आत्मा है. So you're happy. Then there are other sentences which Gita will say, तुम्हारी अपनी आत्मा. वो भी you can follow that also. कोई बात नहीं है. It's very loose from that perspective. Because that is not what Gita is after. It's really what Gita is after is doing things in a way that give you contentment right now, which give you peace right now. Actually, I think we should stop because I don't want to go rush into this. Maybe we'll take this next time because these things about the Karma Yoga are very important actually. So I want to go through these आराम से, आधा घंटा लगेगा इनमें, and I don't think we have time for that tonight.
Yeah.
Huh? So let me close this here. Let's talk for a few minutes. Any other questions or thoughts or whatever? कैसे stop करते हैं? Stop share. Okay. Nothing. I hope none of this was new. Okay. Okay. Yes.
Why do we have to set the Atma free after death?
What?
Why do we have to set Atma free after death?
No, we
There
don't.
is a full there is a full riti that is performed after death of a person to set the soul free.
I don't see that could be very specific to a particular sect or a particular religion. That doesn't fall in the gamut of uh, what Gita is trying to say from a spiritual perspective. The Gita, maybe there are things in the Gita which also refer to these you know very religious matters. They could be. I mean, I don't remember anything in the Gita which says you have to set the person's body free. It's not like that.
No,
But
not the body, the Atma.
आत्मा
Body का
हाँ, गीता में
हाँ,
नहीं है ऐसा कुछ. गीता says कि आत्मा travels after death. That
yes,
Gita does say. But it doesn't say
yes.
that you have
But
to perform a riti to set it free.
नहीं, आत्मा आपको आत्मा अपने जो परिवार के सदस्य हैं या जिनको प्यार करती है उनसे मुक्त नहीं हो पाती है. आपको आत्मा को
No, ये
मुक्ति
वही मैं
देनी
बता रहा हूँ.
पड़ती है.
Gita doesn't say that.
ओके.
See, I understand what you're saying because I lived in India with you, right? So I know all these pujas which are performed, correct? So pujas are performed to let the Atma go peacefully on its journey. I
Yep.
understand that. All I'm saying is Gita doesn't say that. All Gita
Mhm.
says about it is it says that there's something called Jivatma, right? which travels after death, and it talks about two paths of travel, the solar path and the lunar path.
Mhm.
And which path it takes depends upon how you led your life. And and it talks about what happens at the end of it. With the solar path, you go to Brahmalok. With the lunar path, you go to some of the lower lokas and you come back. Right? So it talks about that. And all that is not truly Vedanta. That's not truly Advait Vedanta. Because Gita covers a lot of things, yeah. It doesn't only cover Vedanta. But so that portion of the Gita comes from the earlier parts of the Vedas. जो वेद के जो शुरू के पार्ट है ना, द कर्म कांड, उससे आता है वो, not from the Upanishads. But it doesn't it doesn't talk about what you're specifically saying, which is that you have to do a puja to set this Atma free. I
नो,
know कि
नॉट
लोग कहते हैं,
नेसेसरी। नहीं,
हाँ,
पूजा की जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन आत्मा को मुक्त करना पड़ता है। जैसे कहते हैं कि किसी की अगर बहुत लंबी बीमारी चल रही है और आप उसको मृत्यु नहीं प्राप्त हो रही है, जैसे भीष्म का भी केस था कि अगर बहुत लंबी बीमारी चल रही है, उसको मृत्यु नहीं प्राप्त हो रही है, तो आपको उसको मुक्ति देनी पड़ती है,
करेक्ट करेक्ट,
उसकी आत्मा को मुक्त करना पड़ता है।
आई एग्री। एंड वो मुक्त करने का तरीका हमारे पास क्या है? पूजा ही है ना, और तो कोई तरीका नहीं है हमारे पास। इट्स ऑल पूजा, एवरीथिंग वी डू इज अ कर्मा, इज अ वैदिक कर्मा।
नहीं, यू पूजा एक चीज है, डिटैचमेंट दूसरी चीज है। आपको उसको आपको अपने मुंह से उसको मुक्त करना
Okay,
पड़ेगा।
okay, I see. Now that I haven't even heard of. But anyway, I understand what you're saying. I know of pujas which you have to do, and वो करते हैं. Like after someone dies, there's a immediately after that there's a puja.
Yes, that is
Correct?
that is different thing. What I am saying is simply different.
अच्छा, तो मैंने उसके
Like
बारे में नहीं
my
सुना।
when नहीं, जैसे मम्मी बहुत जब बीमार थी 7 महीने तक, तो उनको मुक्त करने का तरीका सिर्फ ये था कि हम उनसे कहें कि आप अपनी जर्नी पे जाइए,
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा,
हम
ओके ओके
आपको
ओके।
आजाद
हाँ,
करते हैं।
that is before her death, right? Not after her death.
Not after her death. You
Okay,
have to।
I misunderstood. I thought you said after the death. Yes.
नहीं,
नहीं, आप जैसे,
आत्मा की मुक्ति वहीं से शुरू होती कि आत्मा जाए शरीर से, तो शरीर तो रहेगा ही रहेगा, आत्मा चली गई।
yeah. So I mean, these things, I mean, people can interpret things differently. But from what I have understood, and I've read the Gita, there is no mention about this in the Gita. This
ओके।
particular ritual or this particular thing के आपको किसी को मुक्त करना है, शरीर को मुक्त करना है. In fact, actually, it's the other way around in the Gita. It says that जब आत्मा शरीर छोड़ती है, तब मृत्यु होती है. So you cannot stop it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how and why this happens. It's possible that a person is suffering and they're still clinging on to life. Just by willpower, they're clinging on to life, you know, and the bodily functions are still going on. And if the person relaxes and lets go, then they can have a smoother transition. It's possible. And maybe for that reason, we tell them, don't struggle, relax, just let go. And that makes sense to me. But I don't see that covered in the Gita.
ओके।
And
Like the
I
journey
don't.
of the Atma is very well described in Garud Puran.
Hmm,
If you happen to read a few chapters of Garud Puran, I have seen some video clips on YouTube, and it's beautifully explained what
right.
happens after death, what happens to your Atma, how it travels, where it travels, and all those stages, they are beautifully described.
Yeah. Maybe that is where the answer is.
Answer is
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Rachna, you will get your answer there.
No, I
Also,
am not talking about what happens after death. I am talking about setting the atma free.
इवन या सेटिंग जो कहते हैं ना फंस जाती है आत्मा अपने रिश्तेदारों में, उनको वो मोह को छोड़ नहीं पाती ना इन द एंड पार्ट ऑफ द लाइफ. So you have to set it free to so that it
Yeah.
leaves the body comfortably. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Another thing, what Rachna is saying could be कि one has to suffer जो उनका प्रारब्ध कर्मा है जब तक वो फिनिश नहीं होगा तब तक डेथ नहीं आएगी so probably that karma suffering has to go on till that is over then
Yeah.
only probably death comes.
Yeah. So that's very consistent with Vedanta.
Hmm.
And
But
actually, what
also,
Gita says, Gita even says, don't detach yourself, don't wait for death to detach yourself. Detach yourself now. So
Yes.
that you can live happily even when
Yeah,
right. So
yeah.
Yeah.
so
and
even
we keep saying Atma is going to travel, Atma is going to travel, but I assume we're just using that term loosely, right?
yes, exactly.
And also I think this varies from religion to religion. What we are saying may not be said in other religions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, when we say Atma here, we are not talking about the Atma as we've understood it in the Gita or in Vedanta. That is Tattva. This is a very, this if you want to call it something, we should call it Jivatma, you know.
No, basically, what travels is your subtle body.
Yes,
The
your subtle
suit,
body, exactly.
yeah,
Is the subtle body that travels.
travels, yeah.
But what we call Atma is the causal is not the subtle body, right? What we
No.
call. Yeah.
Rajiv, you've been quiet.
Yeah, I have. I also have a cold. So
Oh, you too.
yeah,
I'm just recovering from asthma. It's been 3, 4 weeks. I'm still like, if I talk too much, I still start coughing. Kiki is down with a cold. Must be an American
yeah,
thing.
it's better today, but I had a tough night.
Oh my
Just
God.
Oh, sorry.
hanging. Yeah.
That's rough.
Do you have an inhaler with you or?
No, I don't have any breathing problems
Oh,
per
no,
se.
it's just cold.
It's just
Okay.
sore throat, and
Tough nose.
yeah, it's been going on in the household for a month now. So
Did you go out in snow? It was
just
snowing.
the
just went
elder
out for a
brother
little bit.
speaking.
Yeah, I mean, it's always when it's snowing, it's not very cold. You can really go
Mm,
out, and yeah, of course, you've got to put on a jacket, but it's
mm,
not like you know, it's just calm and quiet. Um, in fact, I really like to walk in the snow because it's such a nice experience.
mm.
So,
So this is your new house now? Have you moved in?
yeah. So I wanted to update everybody. I think I've mentioned to you last week that, or a couple of weeks ago, that we bought a house.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. So it's busy time for us. We are closing this coming Friday, and then we're going to be moving into the house the following Friday, I believe, 27th. Yeah.
Exciting.
So there's a lot of things to be done between now and then. But yeah, I think
Where did you buy? Close by?
yeah, we bought a house in Woodinville, which is the wine country here.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, so we really like the house, and the market is very hot here right now. So we had to quickly move, and the deal got done in 2 days, essentially. Typically, it can take a couple of weeks, as get inspections done and this, that, and the other. But we had to move really fast. And we learned later on there was one other offer we had to compete with. Plus, there were at least 7 or 8 different interest points where some agents came and wanted to bring their clients and so forth. So we knew the property was going to go really fast. So yeah, got it done, and here we are.
Congrats.
Yeah.
It's crazy, you buy a big thing like a house and like 2 days, you visit it twice and like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. I know but the thing is, we've been waiting for a year and a half too, right?
Yeah.
So I don't mind it coming like that, especially if you really like what you got. So hopefully that'll be good.
Nitto, I must say, like the second time around covering chapter 2 was more confusing than the first time around. Everything is so loosey-goosey with the terms and I don't know. Anyway, yeah. It's
That's the fun part of Gita. Every time we go through it,
everything is
you will
very
learn something new and you will get more confused.
you kind of like yeah. Also, I don't think like what you said in the beginning, that we have to accept that we are samsaris. Do you think that we don't? Like you were saying like it's very common. I haven't seen that. It's very common, but and every single issue you describe is like, yes, 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 yes. I'm a sansari in all of those ways. In anxiety, in fear, in completely
Yeah, but you've been doing this for a while, so most people who are new, they don't think like this. Mukta, anything?
No, nothing.
I have to send you guys, I started writing my thoughts down into a book, and I'm like 70% there, but I think this last three, I just have to pull myself together and do the last three chapters. It's taking a long time, but I'll send you. I've been sending them to Mukta, who's been reading and giving me
I
input.
thought you must have finished it by now.
I know I got sick. I mean, I've done a first draft of all of them, but the last three I have to spend some. I know I have to do it, and I just can't get myself to get started. Once I get started, then I'll finish it.
yeah, share what you have.
But this patterns of bondage is something, I mean, like whatever I have done, I'll share, and it's slightly different way of looking at
It's
this.
kind of like looking like therapy, like it's the same thing that you discussed, that there's a template and patterns of behavior. It's almost more in the realm of
No, I mean, so
psychology.
it's like therapy when you're talking, when the part which is the practice part is like therapy, but not the knowledge part.
No, Sankhya part is not that. I'm talking about what you mentioned
Which
on
part?
the Sankhya part is not. Is that
No,
what
it's
you mean?
not
Of
therapy.
course, the knowledge part is not like that. What I'm talking about is the Karma Yoga part, where you say that even if you have the knowledge, it doesn't change it, because then it's talking about at the level of the mind, how
Yeah,
the
yeah,
mind
that's like
has
therapy,
an
of course.
ingrained
I mean, all
pattern.
of that, like I was just telling Rachna, this part of the Gita, which is what we call the practice thing, is very consistent with every religion and even therapy.
Yes, exactly.
Gita is very sort of psychologically um, advanced guide. So this is all, and it's common sense, whether you apply it to therapy or whether you apply it to anything, it's just basic common sense.
It's contemporary every time.
It's not, I mean, contemporary, it's not as if अभी हमारी contemporary कोई बड़ी knowledge हो गई है और पहले हमको नहीं पता था. These things we knew from the past. Kiki is talking about this right now because she's being exposed to them right now. So she's seeing them like this. But these thoughts have been there. They may not have been written as theories, but these ideas and understandings have been there for a very long time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. So Gita is contemporary every time because every time it's been contemporary only. Like it's
Yes.
right. It's not as if अभी हमको कुछ बड़ी बड़ी चीजें पता चल गई हैं जो पहले नहीं पता थी. हमको पहले भी पता थी.
इसमें जो मेंशन किया है कि दिस इज सांख्य योग, जो भी डिस्कस किया, जिसको हम नॉलेज वाला पोर्शन बोल रहे हैं, ज्ञान योग को ही ये सांख्य
हाँ,
योग बोल
सांख्य
रहे
योग
हैं.
बोल रहे हैं. Exactly.
बट देन जो सांख्य फिलॉसफी है, दैट इज
Yeah, that is different.
दिस ओनली, दैट इज डिफरेंट ना.
Yeah, but see, this is all the crazy part of the Gita. So if you were a follower of Sankhya, you'd say this is exactly Sankhya.
Okay.
correct? Because
Sankhya is
actually,
that Prakriti and Purush, that wali
exactly,
philosophy, na?
yeah.
Okay.
Because the term Sankhya is also being used. Sankhya actually means knowledge.
Yeah.
Sankhya means
Okay.
knowledge.
Okay.
So you can use it anyway. But if you look at the Srishti, Gita describes how the universe was formed. जो उनकी सृष्टि की जो वो है ना सृष्टि क्या कहते हैं उसको प्रक्रिया the
Mm-hmm.
सृष्टि प्रक्रिया which is like so how many like Vedanta में depending upon the different Upanishads one Upanishad says there are three tattvas fire water earth one Upanishad says there are five tattvas
5.
right which adds air and space to the fire water earth Sankhya says there are eight tattvas eight
Okay.
right so Gita also says
What are
eight
the
tattvas
3 others?
man antakarna and something else manas antakarna and something
Okay.
else
Okay.
right so it's a way of how you look at it so there are it's eight tattvas and Gita also when it says ashtataha ashtataha means eight types so Gita actually talks about eight tattvas so you can say oh it's talking about Sankhya and in that particular portion of the Gita it uses the Sankhya language it uses the term prakriti instead of maya it never uses anywhere so the Sankhya people are very happy. They say, you know, Gita follows our. हमारे लिए गीता बिल्कुल ठीक है. Advaita Vedanta people are also happy. वो तो गीता पढ़ाते हैं, right? आपको पता है हम पढ़ा रहे हैं. The Dvaita Vedanta also, in fact, there are some religions like the ISKCON and all. उनके तो गीता ही गीता है. All there is gita. वो तो actually जैसे भगवान कृष्ण ने कहा है, मैं सबके पीछे हूँ, मेरे को पूजो. तो भगवान कृष्ण को ही पूजो और किसी को मत पूजो. You know. So they take it totally literally. Right? So Gita is very malleable, very fuzzy. It's fuzzy logic.
So
You
what if
can,
somebody is only studying the Gita?
well, if you're only studying the Gita, then you will not be able to make head or tail out of it,
Yeah. I mean, it's so
right? Because
amorphous.
you'll get totally confused
Yeah.
unless you are just superficially just wanting to want a prescription, right? That is a different thing. But if you really want to understand it and you want to think through it and be consistent, then you have to think about it from a philosophy perspective.
So from an
Otherwise, Gita says one thing, one place, another thing, another place, another. You will have to, one way or the other, you'll have to resolve it into your mind if you're a thinking person. But if you're not a thinking person, that's fine too. Then Gita will tell you, you'll take a shlok, Gita will tell you, ये शरीर is like वस्त्र, पुराने हो जाएंगे उतार दोगे. You'll just stick with that, ठीक है, I'm fine. मुझे पता है कि अगले जन्म में मेरा दूसरा शरीर हो जाएगा. मैं तो देही हूँ. They're not concerned ki what does Dehi mean? Ki Dehi is, what does it mean to be a Dehi? How can the Dehi experience? How can Dehi be changeless and still experience? How can something which is changeless experience? Because एक तरफ वो कहते हैं कि Dehi is the one who experiences all this from youth to everything. दूसरी लाइन में वो कहता है कि Dehi is changeless. It
Yeah.
cannot be killed. It cannot be done. Nothing can be done. So if you really think, if you're a thinking person, a really thinking person, you'll take these two statements and say they don't tally.
Yeah.
But if I tell just somebody on the street or most of us, we'll say, yeah, okay, fine. We are not thinking that much. We just need to know, okay, there's a life after death. But a philosopher will think. He'll say, how the hell can these two happen? How can I experience anything if I'm changeless? Because to experience, I have to be changeless. So, depending upon, you have to then formulate an answer. You have to formulate a hypothesis. And depending upon what speaks to you, you'll formulate your answer. And uh, to me, the best formulation or the most logical formulation of it all is Advaita Vedanta. But Advaita Vedanta has its own issues, you know. So Ramanujan wrote in his commentary, Ramanujan, he took 10 points about Advaita Vedanta, and, and he just demolished it. He said, what the hell is there? What are they talking about? Right?
Really?
From his perspective. Of course, because I um, like to think that I'm a thinking person, right? I would, in my own mind, have to come up with answers to those questions, which I, by and large, have. So I'm okay. But there are always these um, little points, where there's uncertainty. See, no logic. You cannot say I arrive at this logically, because logic starts with assumption. You cannot logic always There's always an assumption as a starting point, an axiom. Having considered that axiom or that assumption to be true, you can logically deduce other things. But you have to first assume that basic axiom. You can't logically arrive at something which has no axiom at all. So that is why these philosophies are philosophies. Okay, it's not one truth. You just have to find the one truth that speaks to you, think about it yourself, and say, okay, this is my understanding of the truth, good enough for me to live my life properly.
So do you think that for a Vedantin, Gita is a requisite text? Because what Gita provides for anyone who studies Advaita Vedanta is readiness of mind, right? Or
No,
the
it is
karma.
Advaita Vedanta. You don't need Gita to provide that. Advaita Vedanta talks about readiness of mind on its own. Gita doesn't say anything that is new. The readiness of mind which Gita talks to comes from the early part of the Vedas. The knowledge which Gita parts to comes from the latter part of the Vedas and other philosophies. If you went through, you can forget about the Gita. If you went through the Vedas in the beginning and followed the disciplines of the earlier part of the Vedas, the Karam Kanda, you'll be ready for the next part of the Vedas. So Vedas are complete in itself. You go through and live your life according to the Vedas from the beginning till the end, you're done. You're fine. You don't need anything else. Because Vedas, in the end, have these Upanishads. In the beginning, they have these all the Samhitas and the Brahmanas, and then uske baad there's a transition also. They have the Aranyakas. So you go through that portion, Samhita and the Brahmanas and the Aranyakas. They provide the preparation of the mind, and then after that you go to Upanishad in the sequence. Gita ने क्या करा है? Gita is basically called the essence of the Ved. They say Gita is the milk, Veda is the cow. Ved is the cow, Bhagwan Krishna is the milkman, and Gita is the milk that has come out of it. So it's the essence of the Ved. That's what Gita is. Karam Yoga is the essence from the early part of the Ved, and the Gyan Yoga is the essence from the later part of the Ved. That's it. The problem is when we only listen to Upanishads, we haven't gone through the initial part of the Ved. हम सोचते हैं हम तो बड़े सीधा हम चले गए वहां पे, कुछ पता नहीं चलता फिर हमको. Then it's all bubble in our mind. So Gita helps us because it also points to the previous part of the Ved. But you don't have to. Gita is not a Shruti. You have to understand Shruti. Gita is a Smriti. Smriti means it's repeating things which have been told. Shruti means it's the original text told by God. But Smritis are helpful because, Gita is approachable. Language is simple. And it relates things in very real terms.
Yeah.
गीता को अगर पूरी तरह समझना है तो धीरज मुझे लगता है कि उसके आसपास के सर्कमस्टांसेस को भी समझना पड़ता है. यानी पहले आपको महाभारत को जरूर पढ़ना चाहिए जिससे कि आप गीता तक पहुंच सकें. क्या कहते हैं धीरज?
So महाभारत को भी लोग कहते हैं it's a Ved. Actually, they say Mahabharata itself is a Ved. So महाभारत के अंदर जो महाभारत is not just a story. Mahabharata has various instructions all through. So Gita is one instruction, right? Which is very popular, very famous. But it's giving lots of instructions right through. So जो वेद में जो instructions लिखी हुई हैं, वो महाभारत में भी हैं. But it's like almost like a Purana. So Purana में भी वही instructions हैं, but put in a form of a story. पुराण में बड़ी सारी stories हैं. और उसको बिल्कुल पुराण is called the poor man's Veda. So वेद करने के लिए क्या करना चाहिए? वेद पढ़ने के लिए it's not easy, it's not accessible. तुमको संस्कृत का स्कॉलर होना पड़ेगा. वो संस्कृत भी अलग है. वेद की जो संस्कृत है, it's different from the classical संस्कृत. गीता की संस्कृत वेरी सिंपल, मैं भी पढ़ के थोड़ा समझ सकता हूँ यू नो वेद की संस्कृत इज कंप्लीटली कॉम्प्लिकेटेड. इट हैज टेंसेस एंड ग्रामर which doesn't exist in classical Sanskrit. And it is really confusing also because Ved has been written in different times, so the different Samhitas or the different mandalas in the Samhitas are also using slightly different languages. So to really understand Ved, you have to be a real scholar. And then you have to, it's not only to be understood, it has to be followed. Ved के जो initial portions हैं, they talk about mantras and rituals. So Ved का मतलब ये नहीं है कि तुमने बैठ के पढ़ लिया. You have to actually do those rituals. You have to actually perform them. We are not we are not going to perform those rituals. So वेद को सिंप्लीफाई करने के लिए दे मेड पुराणास एंड एक्चुअली और भी ज्यादा सिंप्लीफाई करने के लिए थिंग्स लाइक महाभारत. बिकॉज महाभारत तो इट मेक्स इट इनटू सच एन इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी that all these instructions. So when Bhishma was dying, he gave a series of instructions when he was dying. उसको कहा, कृष्ण ने कहा अर्जुन को, उनसे पूछो क्या ज्ञान है उनके पास. तो ऐसे करके उस अर्जुन गया, प्लीज मुझे ज्ञान दो. तो उसने कहा मैं तुमसे खुश हूं, मैं तुमको ज्ञान देता हूं. Then he gave some ज्ञान. That is an instruction which is consistent with Veda. We haven't studied it, but it's it's real. It's like true instruction. Similarly, in the beginning, जब वो फॉरेस्ट में गए तो किसी ऋषि के पास गए, ऋषि ने उनको कुछ ज्ञान दिया, किसी और ने कुछ ज्ञान दिया. So this is how Mahabharat sort of introduces you to some of the ज्ञान of the Vedas. So yes, you're right कि in that way तुमको महाभारत पढ़नी चाहिए, but you don't have to. You don't have to. If you haven't read it, that's fine too. Then you have to go to a guru who can give you the gist of it, who can give you the gist of the Vedas or the gist of whatever, and then you learn the Gita properly. But you can't get anything out of Gita by just, you can't say मैंने संस्कृत सीख ली और जाके गीता पढ़ ली और मुझे समझ आ गई. कुछ समझ आ जाएगा थोड़ा बहुत, 1%, 2%. But the true meaning you have to get it from a guru. So that's why we talk about the Gita. We say Gita, but if you see, most of our discussions are not on Gita. We take Gita as a starting point because it's an easy, accessible starting point, and then we talk about generic things. We talk about Vedanta. And particularly we talk about Advaita Vedanta. Even Karma Yoga, when we talk about Karma Yoga, we simplify it to our purposes. So जब मैं book लिख रहा हूँ, that is my way of simplifying everything that I've learned and putting it down in black and white. Not everything, part of it. Something which is simple for people to see and relate to in today's world without any
उसको पब्लिश कराइएगा.
मैंने अपने बेटे को पूछा, he used to be a journalist. वो कहता है, डैड मे बी पब्लिश तो नहीं होगा, बट यू कैन एटलीस्ट मेक इट इनटू अ ब्लॉग. ऐसे ब्लॉग कर देंगे. He said you can make a long form blog. कहते हैं आजकल में कोई बुक्स तो पढ़ता ही नहीं है. I said maybe that's true actually. Not many people read books nowadays. Maybe in India it's different.
नहीं, ऑनलाइन तो पढ़ते हैं, ऑनलाइन तो पढ़ते हैं
किंडल
वैसे.
में हो सकती है.
हाँ, Kindle is very simple.
किंडल में कर
It's
दो
like
ना.
YouTube. If I can publish an article in YouTube or publish this thing in YouTube, I can publish in Kindle. दुनिया
Yeah.
आम कर रही है. Especially after
वही.
AI के बाद तो it's just a complete profusion of books. Yeah, so I'll put it I'll put it in Kindle and feel very happy that I have written a book. मन को बहलाने की बात है.
नहीं, आजकल तो लिमिटेड कॉपीज भी पब्लिश हो जाती है ना ऑनलाइन. आपको बहुत ज्यादा पब्लिश करने की जरूरत नहीं है. अगर आपको 10 कॉपीज चाहिए तो आप 10 कॉपीज भी पब्लिश कर सकते हैं.
Okay. चलो, actually Rachna, maybe you can guide me. Still. Yeah, long हो गया. 5 more minutes. Meeting हो गई? Training? My part is done. Oh, good. Nice. Kavita was doing her training this morning. Yeah, no, Rachna, I will definitely seek your advice after I've. And in fact, actually, you should read it also because I want it to be clearly understood. My fear is, I started very simple, but now, like, there's another friend of mine who I'm sharing it with. तो पहले 4 चैप्टर तो वो खुशी खुशी पढ़ गया, बड़ा अच्छा है, कहता है इट्स रियली. 5th चैप्टर ऑनवर्ड वो बेचारा कहता है आई एम दिस, यू आर यूजिंग टर्म्स. मैंने कहा मैंने कोई संस्कृत नहीं यूज करी. But Keta, you're still using terms. Now it's become very complicated. So I have to really simplify it. Anyway, ठीक है.
Okay.
Okay, time to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, we meet in 2 weeks, yeah?
Okay.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Okay,
Okay,
bye.
bye.
Bye.